I want to talk about cloud gaming, which is no doubt going to be a big part of our future, and I think the companies that will thrive are the ones who treat cloud gaming as a companion to local hardware gaming, not as the sole gaming medium like Stadia is doing. And we've already talked about xCloud quite a bit and the prospects and promise of that particular service in conjunction with Xbox's other ventures with Series X and Game Pass. I think that sounds fantastic. We have talked about GeForce Now, and now Steam is kind of joining the fray by partnering up with GeForce Now and supporting their endeavors. And I think this is going to put Stadia in a very tough position, given just what an awful value proposition it is compared to services like xCloud and GeForce Now Steam Cloud Play. So here's some information detailed by Steam itself on their documentation page, which talks about what this endeavor of Steam Cloud Play entails, which is currently in beta. The introduction kind of summarizes what their aim is with this. It reads right here: Steam Cloud Play is currently in beta and features are being added over time. We are now accepting a limited amount of games into the service as we continue to build features and server capacity for players. The first service we are connecting to Steam to allow users to play games from their Steam library from the cloud is NVIDIA GeForce Now. There are more details below about how to opt your games into the service, as well as answers to a few common questions below, which we'll get to in a bit. Currently, NVIDIA GeForce Now is available in North America, Western Europe, and Asia Pacific. Currently, Steam users will need to download the GeForce Now client and connect their Steam account to the GeForce Now service to play their Steam library. The user may pay a subscription cost to use the GeForce Now service. Customers will continue to acquire games on Steam the same way they do today, and partner payouts will remain the same. These cloud services enable Steam users to play their Steam library in the cloud, one game at a time, like they can on their local PC. Developers must manually opt in the games they wish to make available on GeForce Now. So the incredible thing about GeForce Now is that it is very much a companion to local hardware gaming. What that service does is take the games you have already purchased, which you can download on your local hardware, and just play them on the cloud. You do have to pay $5 a month for the service that GeForce Now is providing, but for the advantages that provides, I think a lot of people are willing to make that compromise. And this is a vastly different strategy from Stadia, which solely relies on cloud gaming, does not offer the option to download games, and yet still charges full price for those titles, which you only gain server access to. I've said before, and I'll keep repeating, that Stadia's business model is the thing that will kill it. And now with Steam and GeForce Now sort of partnering up to make it as easy as possible for people to take local hardware purchases and just take them to the cloud, it is the best of both worlds. It is you choosing how and where you want to play the games rather than a service forcing you to just play on the cloud with all of the disadvantages that come with that, with all of the unreliable aspects. I've always been in the belief that if you're just going to do a streaming platform, then you have to go for a Netflix-style subscription model where you pay a monthly fee and you gain access to an entire library of games, rather than forcing people to pay a subscription for basic features like 4K and the like, and then adding the extra cost of paying full price for these games that you only gain server access to. So GeForce Now, I think, is doing it right. Now, right down here, you'll find an FAQ section that's more dedicated to developers. This is a documentation page that is intended to inform devs on how all this will affect them. And one of the questions listed asks if developers will be paid differently with this integration. The response reads that developers will be paid the same way. It's just that this integration will let people choose how they want to utilize that $60 purchase. And then this next question right here asks if developers need to do work on their end for this implementation. The response reads, fortunately, there is very little work to get your game working on a Steam Cloud Gaming service. You need to sign the addendum, opt each game into the program, and ensure your game has either Steam Cloud enabled or its own online save system. Most the time, these are the only requirements. When testing your game, if another issue comes up, we will reach out to you to help fix any specific issues. So it's as simple for the most part as opting in, unless for whatever reason there's some kind of technical issue, but there shouldn't be this major porting process. It should be fairly easy for developers to allow people to play their game on the cloud via GeForce Now if they so choose to. And then finally, here's a question that asks if other cloud gaming services will be added to Steam Cloud Play, if there will be other partnerships and integrations. To that, Steam responded, we may add additional Steam Cloud Gaming services in the future. At that time, we would reach out to you to opt your games into the new service. So things might develop down the line, but for now, Steam is choosing to work with GeForce Now to kind of push this cloud gaming future, where cloud again is a companion to local gaming rather than a competition to it. Whereas with Stadia, it's just an awful strategy all around because there is no benefit to that service. You're paying the same amount of money you'd pay for local hardware and flat out getting an inferior experience with more potential issues, with less stability, with a whole lot of drawbacks. And hell, this is something that even Strauss Zelnick, Take-Two CEO, recognized. He flat out just talked about how Stadia's launch did not go well at all in a statement that reads, streaming technology is upon us. The launch of Stadia has been slow. I think there was some overpromising on what the technology could deliver and some consumer disappointment as a result. Over time, I believe streaming will work. The belief that streaming was going to be transformative was based on a view that there were loads of people who really had an interest in interactive entertainment, really wanted to pay for it, but just didn't want to have a console. I'm not sure that turned out to be the case. And look, I'm not a fan of Strauss Zelnick. He's one of those CEOs who reinforces scummy monetization in video games. But as far as this statement goes, he kind of hit it 100% on the head. Not only did Stadia overpromise, but they also assumed that for people, consoles were a hindrance, when in reality, consoles are things that people look forward to and are willing to pay for if they offer the proper price point and if they offer the proper features, and more importantly, if they have desired games. And that's kind of what's been going on with PlayStation 4. That's why it sold 100 million units. It wouldn't sell that many if people just weren't interested in consoles. No, people love consoles. They love local hardware gaming because they don't have to deal with the prospect of connection issues getting in the way of their experience. Stadia appeals to a very niche, very specific group of people. But as far as gamers go, the fact of the matter is that those who are able to pay $60 per game are also able to afford a console. Google just vastly overestimated how much people would really want a cloud-only platform the way they launched the platform, the service, without the promised features, without a big library of games, and with that really awful business model. All of that contributed to Stadia's rough launch, and I think it will continue to contribute to Stadia's downfall. Now, it should be noted that GeForce Now is facing its own set of challenges, particularly when it comes to developers opting out of the service. So over the past few months, we have seen companies like 2K Games pull out of GeForce Now. We have seen companies like Activision and Bethesda pulling their games as well. And even disappointingly, Xbox Game Studios and Warner Brothers decided that people shouldn't have access to their games on GeForce Now. And keep in mind, again, that these are games that people have already purchased on platforms like Steam. People have to buy the games first on the platform that they want and give the developers and the publishers money for that game before they can take that game to the cloud with GeForce Now, before they have that option. But a big part of this has to do with the fact that a lot of companies maybe want to pursue their own cloud gaming venture. Xbox is doing xCloud, and so this is probably a conflict of interest. But at the same time, I believe that if they just, create a proper value for xCloud, if they implement xCloud with Game Pass and Series X, and if they offer these unique features and integrations that make xCloud just a more convenient platform and service to use for cloud gaming, people will flock towards it, with GeForce Now just being another potential option. But from a legal standpoint, there is licensing to consider. There's the fact that GeForce Now is technically using other games to market their own service and are kind of profiting from that. And so there is some contention here and there are some arguments that can be made. But I think generally speaking, developers who are consumer friendly should strive to kind of reinforce GeForce Now to push this notion of, hey, you've already picked and purchased our game, just play the game however you want. Unfortunately, there are many companies and studios who do believe in this idea. CD Projekt Red, unsurprisingly, one of the most consumer-friendly game studios, they have flat out allowed GeForce Now to host Cyberpunk 2077 so that when people buy this game on GOG or Steam, they can choose to pay GeForce Now $5 a month, take that game that they've already bought, and do what they want with it, play locally or on the cloud. Tim Sweeney, I've disagreed a lot with his stance on exclusivity, but as far as GeForce Now is concerned, I agree with what he says here when he tweeted out, Epic is wholeheartedly supporting NVIDIA's GeForce Now service with Fortnite and with Epic Game Store titles that choose to participate, including exclusives, and will be improving the integration over time. It's the most developer-friendly and publisher-friendly of the major streaming services with zero tax on game revenue. Game companies who want to move the game industry towards a healthier state for everyone should be supporting this kind of service. There are even indie developers who have chimed in support, like Ted Murphy here, developer for Terraria. He said, though admittedly we did not know that this would be a paid service, as it is only accessible to gamers whom already own Terraria, it only seems fair to let gamers play the game they paid for the way they prefer. Now, not all indie devs are on board with this. There are those who have denounced GeForce Now for opting in their games without asking them, without informing them. But my stance is GeForce Now is not taking away from game sales. It's just taking games people already paid for and giving them an extra thing they can do with that. And I just don't see that much wrong with it. Now, despite setbacks, GeForce Now is proving to be pretty popular and pretty successful. It is certainly more successful than Stadia. GeForce Now announced not that long ago that their service kind of sold out in the sense that they reached max capacity at that time. I don't know how things are now. But a lot of people are kind of trying out GeForce Now. They're very curious about it because it is so cheap, $5 a month, and also because it is a service that makes sense, that doesn't take away anything, just gives you an extra thing, whereas buying games on Stadia takes away your ability to take that game and download it and play it on local hardware if your internet connection isn't up to par, if you lose internet access in the middle of the day. So it's just a much safer option to go with GeForce Now. And now with the Steam integration, it is an even better proposition. And it makes Stadia all the more irrelevant, all the more inferior, and all the more prone to fail and to continue to flop so long as that business model of pay full price for cloud-only games that could offer all kinds of disadvantages remains. Or at the very least, that's one man's take on this whole situation. I'll repeat what I said before. I am not against cloud gaming so long as it is a companion to local hardware gaming, not a competitor to it. Stadia is trying to pit cloud gaming as the only way to play games, whereas xCloud and GeForce Now and now Steam Cloud Play are saying, no, it's just an extra option people should have. It should be an add-on to local gaming, not sort of an exception. And these are all sentiments that I agree with. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on all of this and what your take is on cloud gaming's role in the future of gaming. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.